Step 4 is adding the software applications, some of which are systems applications that are used for the running of the system, and others are optional business applications or utility productivity applications used by your users and your staff. On the desktop we can see a few of the icons. The system installation has already installed a number of these functions. This one here, Hybrid Desk Station, is a very useful facility. You notice the arrow there indicating that that it needs to be installed before it can be used. If we move across to the top here, we can see there's a systems information area where it's been sending us through notifications as it does or performs certain functions. And down the bottom there's some errors. QTS volume not found, public folders not found, and so on. Well, before I go any further, I'm just going to clear that, because these errors down here were only errors because I opted to create the volumes separately, which is what we've just done in the last video. And now that we're about to start the actual installation of software, I think it's a good idea to clear it so that there are no messages in there, and then if there are messages in there, especially if they're errors, we should pay attention to them. The hybrid desktop, clicking on that, because it is not installed, will immediately begin the installation of it. It's just asking us to take responsibility for downloading. That's fine. The hybrid desk station is the application that makes use of the HDMI output on the back of the NAS when connected to a monitor and you plug in a keyboard and mouse using the USB ports on the back of the NAS, you basically can operate the NAS as if it were a PC. The hybrid desk station is a particular user interface. It's not Windows, it's not Linux, it's a QNAP's own specific design that allows you to start up a number of the software applications that are available to you under the NAS using this keyboard, mouse and monitor connected to the back of the NAS. These are the applications that by default you can use. The hybrid desk station is quite a useful tool if you use it if you are only to use it as a system administration console. It provides you with a QTS desktop, this same desktop we're using here. It provides you with all these other programs like Chrome, Clarentine, Facebook, and so on. Now, why would it do that? The other really useful thing about the hybrid desktop is that since you can plug the HDMI output from the back of the NAS into a TV, you can then use a TV as a desktop station occasionally. So you can have a little miniature keyboard or a wireless keyboard and use that to run the hybrid desktop using the TV as your monitor. So you could flick between TV programs and entertainment and using the TV as a computer screen to run an operating system and then flick back again. In a business situation, another thing that's quite interesting is if you have the NAS sitting not tucked away in a computer room but somewhere else in the office where it can be easily accessible, the 3 HDMI ports can do quite a few things for you, and one of them is obviously connect up and run a PC. When we get to talk about virtualization station, you can opt to have any of the virtual machines available as an icon that a user can click on from within hybrid desk station, which basically means you can click on it and virtually have a dual boot arrangement where when you click on the icon within the hybrid desk station, you're magically running Linux, or you're magically running Windows, or you're magically running whatever operating system you care to create as a virtual machine inside your NAS. So quite a useful tool. Once you've been using it for a while, you'll get your head around it. Just let's continue with the installation. The only thing I'll opt out of at the moment is Plex Home Theater. I prefer not to install it at this stage. I can install it later at any time, but if I'm going to install a SSL certificate, it takes up the SSL port name, and I prefer to manually allocate it to another port when I'm installing it. So let's turn that off and come back to it later. The rest of them are fine. We'd leave the rest of them on. Music Station, TDD, Photo Station, QDS console is this same administrative console, but under the hybrid desktop. Skype, Spotify, even Surveillance Station down there. Apply that. Now this takes a while to run, so I'll just pause the video. You'll notice I got my first message up there appearing. Started to download the HD station, so it actually downloads the software from the QNAP website. If I was to click on this icon here, I can see that there's a couple of background tasks running. The first one is the RAID group synchronization, which we discussed a moment ago, and it's 36% of the way through downloading the hybrid station. Now I'll just explain one other thing as I'm waiting for that to finish. When you set the NAS up, when you start the NAS on a task, such as this one is here, downloading hybrid disk station, and it's going to then start installing it. This is running as a background task, and you can then continue to use the NAS for other purposes whilst that's downloading. Obviously, if you tried to use hybrid disk station, it wouldn't allow you to, but it's usually fairly robust. It will tell you that you can't use it yet until you come back later. When this finishes, it's at 94% now, so if I just stop that, any moment now on the bottom right hand corner you'll get a notification popping up when it gets to 100%. So if you happen to be sitting at the console doing other things, you'll always know when something you've started to run has finished. Okay, a message hasn't come up yet. Let's have a look at it. Okay, it must only come up when it finishes installing. So there it is. Messages just came up. Started to download, finished download, and finished installing. So for whatever reason, they all came up at once. But there they are. So the point is, what I'm trying to say is, you get notifications on the right-hand side. If you don't happen to be sitting at the console when it happens, you can always use this this icon here to review the notifications that came to you while you weren't sitting there watching. Now it's downloaded and installed hybrid disk station. You can see these other messages coming up: Spotify, Superflux, Tune Radio, RAID group. This is the other software applications that we selected on that dialog just before we pressed accept to start the hybrid desktop installation. It asked us if we wanted to install, whilst it was installing hybrid disk stations, all these other utilities, and we said yes, so it's now telling us that they're finished installing. I just want to reinforce something here. You can see it installing something like Spotify, and in case you're wondering why would it install Facebook and why would it install Spotify, it's because the whole idea of having the hybrid disk station is that anybody can use the hybridization desktop and log in as their own user ID and password. Once you've logged in as your own user ID and password, you would then use Facebook or Spotify using your own login credentials, and that information is then personalized to that user that is logged in. If I log in with my credentials, I use my Facebook account, I use my Spotify account, and the hybrid desktop then reflects the services and the facilities that I have as an individual user. If you log in with your credentials, you get your own personalized workspace. And the hybrid desktop is not meant to be a replacement for something like Windows that you use for work purposes, or another alternative to iPad. It's something that is intended, and the user interface is designed to be used in a more casual environment or in a home environment as a desktop control to the NAS, if you have the correct administrative privileges, but also as a leisure and entertainment device to access these entertainment resources that you would have available to you through the NAS. So it doesn't have all the complexities of Windows. It's simpler to use, and it's designed in such a way that you could use it with one of those miniature keyboards from the comfort of a lounge. Having said that, of course, if you did open up Hybrid Desktop and click on the icon that said virtual Windows 10 virtual machine, you would have at that point a full-on Windows virtual machine, and it would operate as a proper Windows machine until you exit it. So it's something you need to see for yourself to understand what it does and why it's helpful. It's now helpful to look at this status again. It's back to the one task, RAID group 1 synchronizing. All the other tasks have dropped off, helping you to understand that the installation of the Hybrid Desktop is finished. So now we can close that and then go to the App Center again and then begin to install some of the other applications. The first thing I'll point out is that there are QTS Essentials, QNAP Essentials. Now these are particularly important and helpful facilities that you should always install. Now I'll just start off with some of the more straightforward ones. The first is Container Station. So Container Station, if you remember from a prior video segment, is a mechanism that you can use within the NAS to run Docker containers. And Docker containers is another way of downloading software that from the cloud, from any of the application stores, and it's an alternate way of running it, which is very popular for Internet of Things style applications. So we'll install that. The first thing you'll notice is that it starts the download, just as we saw before. You see the download go around, and it's indicating where it's up to by the pie graph, and then once downloaded it'll start to install. Whilst that's finishing its installation, we can start one of the other ones. So the next simple one to install is the download. The home multimedia option needs to be enabled. Do you want to enable it? Okay. Containers have been installed. Shortcuts have been added to the desktop. Now it's done that, it is going to ask us when we try to install Download Station which volume out of the volumes we created it is to be used, and because it's a part of the systems, I'm going to choose volume 1. So we'll see it download and then begin to install. Next is Notes Station. That's actually I'll come back to Notes Station. Let's install Proxy. Proxy is more of a systems type of thing, so we'll install it in the first volume. QCenter is also, notice I'm going to do more than one at once now, which is okay. You can run multiple installs at the same time. QNAP. Cloud is a systems type of function, so we'll just let that run. Multimedia streaming. Add-on, definitely we need that one. Connect to cloud backup. I'll come back to that. Multimedia is you're going to use that multimedia directory in the first volume, so we'll accept that one. Virtualization Station, that's going to use the second volume. probably won't ask us the question until we try to start it. LPN VPN is systems, so we'll just click on that. Q search is helpful to find things quickly. I'll just put that in the system volume. It's video station is multimedia volume 1. Linux station. I'm not going to install Linux station at this stage. Linux station is a peculiar one in that if we want to use Linux station, we've got to disable hybrid station, and swapping backwards and forwards is a little bit cumbersome, and I don't actually know of a use case for wanting to use Linux station at this stage, so I tend to leave it off because, as I said, it is a bit cumbersome swapping back and forth, and people can get themselves into a bit of a knot. Added to that, you can always run a Linux console as a Docker container or a virtual machine. There's at least 2 other ways to run a Linux machine inside the NAS, which is a lot more practical than running it as one of the as a console only accessible through a HDMI screen and keyboard plugged into the back of the NAS. So I'd be inclined to leave that off, unless you can come up with a good reason for having it. The next one is a surveillance station. In this particular customer's case, I'm going to allocate the footage from the cameras to be stored into a special volume, but the software itself is web-based, or predominantly web-based, so it will be putting it into the system's volume anyway. We'll just allow it to do its standard installation, and then when we run it, we'll nominate where the recordings are stored. Note station, I think I'll install in the system and volume, the volume number 1 as well, because again it's a web style application, so the software itself will automatically be put into /web anyway. You'll notice that even though I'm still partway through installation, the photo station has already installed and now detected that there's an update available. So that's a yes. Now we've finished with the essentials, we'll move across to recommended. There are a number of ones that are important here. Codecs is the first. Definitely you need that because it's essential for running all the multimedia and DNLA services. QNAP diagnostic tool, that's helpful. I'll just go back up to all applications and look for backup versioning. It's very helpful. I'll be needing that for synchronization. I would always install WordPress, unless of course in this case the customer uses WordPress, but if they were to use Joomla or Drupal, we could install that instead. Whenever you install WordPress, you also need to install my PHP admin, which is PHP admin. This. Again, it's a web function, so we'll use that first volume. Now, in the setting up of the volumes in the prior video segment, we created a number of volumes. I was following an example to give you a run through of some ideas of how you might create volumes and how you might think about storing them. But we're doing a real customer system here, so it's now time to start fine-tuning that, and changing your mind on the volumes is also something that happens in business, and you need to know how to deal with it. So it's come to our attention, let's just say, that we don't need these 3 volumes. We just need a 3 terabyte wide area network. There's no need for production, there's no need for surveillance. So what we're able to do is just remove the volume. I haven't added anything to it yet. I haven't installed any applications in it yet. So it's quite okay just to remove it and create it again. So in this case, I will remove surveillance, and all it does is it just frees up the disk space again. Bearing in mind that it's also deleting anything that was on it. So if we hadn't installed software on it or put data on it, it would be important for us to move that data elsewhere and deinstall the application before we remove the volume. Just remember that, that's very important. So this one here, we don't want to have, well, we want to have a PC LAN folder, but we want to just have the rest of the drive installed. Seeing as though we haven't actually added anything to it yet, we'll remove this volume. Before we progress, and then remove the production volume. Now the production volume, manage. So as you can see, it's very easy to remove a volume, which is both good and also a concern. It just brings home the point that you need to ensure that only the people who understand the purposes of the structure as it's set up and have the knowledge to know what to do are given access to this part of the system. Alright, next we just add our 4th volume, new volume. Three terabytes, volume 4. Was it 4 or 3? 3. RAM. Next, finish, and wait till that has completed. So now we've created our new structure with just our simple 3 LAN volumes. We'll go back to the App Center, and I want to install these 2 remaining applications. Connect to Drive. Connect to Cloud Drive is a backup and sync utility for cloud services such as Google Drive, Amazon, where you can copy or you can back up and synchronize what you've got stored in those services to an area of the NAS. And it would make sense that you would use a folder within that same LAN volume, which is interesting. It's not showing the new structure. Exit and come back in again. Careful of that. Center. So it should be volume 3 now. Yes, there it is. LAN. Okay. So that'll do that now, and the cloud link is the same. Stored in volume 3, which is the LAN volume, for the same reasons, because the files that it synchronizes are kind of the same sort of thing as your local area network, and you would want to use folders in that area because they would have the same backup regime, they would have the same synchronization requirements. So it's common sense to put it there. So that's just about it. The only one that we haven't installed from the essentials is the Linux stations, which we spoke of earlier. And in the recommended, there are a number of great functions that we can install, but we don't need to install them all right now. I'll go through each of them individually as we're setting up those specific features.